The footage was only 47 seconds. Long 47 seconds that would change everything inside the walls of Windsor Castle. 47 seconds that would make a future king lose his composure in front of staff, security, and the people he trusted most. And 47 seconds that would force the royal family to confront a truth they had buried for months. No one was supposed to see that footage. But someone did. It started on a Tuesday morning in late autumn. The sky above Windsor was the color of ash. Princess Charlotte had gone quiet in a way that no child should ever go quiet. Not the silence of sleep, or shyness, or a bad mood. This was the silence of something witnessed, something felt, something that left a 9-year-old girl sitting at the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, refusing to speak. Her nanny noticed first. She reported it to a senior member of the household staff. The staff member noted it in the daily log, the way they were trained to do, and moved on. No red flags were raised. Not yet. Prince William was in Scotland that week. Duties, speeches, ribbon cuttings. The public version of royalty, smiles and handshakes and carefully chosen words. But Catherine called him that evening. Her voice was calm, but William knew his wife. He knew the specific weight of her calm when something was wrong. Charlotte hasn't spoken since yesterday morning. Catherine said. William was on the next flight south by the time he arrived at Windsor. Charlotte had eaten a little, but her eyes were still distant. She wouldn't tell her mother what had happened. She wouldn't tell her father either. She just sat with her knees pulled to her chest, looking at something no one else could see. William sat beside her on the floor, not on the bed. On the floor, at her level. He didn't ask questions. He just sat there, close enough that she could feel him. That was how he'd always been with her, patient. In a way, the world never expected from a man like him. It took almost an hour. Then Charlotte turned to him and said 4 words. She made me scared. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. These stories matter, and more are coming every week. William didn't move. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed soft. Who did, sweetheart? Charlotte looked down again. She pressed her lips together like she was deciding something. Like she was weighing the cost of saying it out loud. She didn't say the name. But she pointed. She pointed toward the east wing. Toward the part of the castle where Camilla, the queen consort, had been staying during a series of extended royal engagements. A visit that was supposed to last 5 days. It had stretched to 18. William stood up slowly. He kissed Charlotte on the forehead. He told Catherine to stay with her, and then he walked. His footsteps were quiet on the stone floors. The staff who passed him in the corridor said later that they had never seen his face look like that before. Not angry, exactly. Worse than angry, controlled, deliberate. The look of a man who had tied to something and wasn't going back. He went straight to the head of castle security. Pull the CCTV, he said. The east corridor. Yesterday afternoon. All of it. The security officer hesitated for only a second. Then he reached for the keyboard, and 47 seconds later, everything changed. Asterisk, asterisk, the CCTV room smelled of stale coffee and cold air. 2 monitors glowed on the desk. William stood behind the security officer, arms folded, eyes fixed on the screen. He had asked for privacy. The room was cleared, except for the 2 of them and 1 senior aide, a man named Gerald, who had served the royal family for over 20 years and had, until that moment, believed he had seen everything. The footage loaded. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m., the east corridor. A long carpeted hallway lined with portraits of kings and queens who no longer breathed. Charlotte appeared first. She was wearing a pale blue cardigan and carrying a small sketchbook she had been drawing that afternoon, something she did when she wanted to feel calm. She was walking toward the library. Her steps were light. She was humming something, barely audible on the audio feed. Then Camilla appeared from the side passage. She hadn't been expected in that corridor. Her schedule had her in the south drawing room for afternoon tea with 2 visiting dignitaries. But there she was, moving at a pace that seemed purposeful. Her eyes found Charlotte immediately. William leaned forward slightly. What happened next was not violent. There were no raised hands, no dramatic gestures. And yet the security officer, watching it for the second time now, felt the same chill he had felt the first time directly into Charlotte's path. Charlotte stopped. She looked up. She smiled the polite smile that royal children are trained from birth to give the default expression for adults they don't know how to read yet. Camilla did not smile back. She leaned down, bringing her face close to Charlotte's. Close enough that it was clearly intentional. Close enough that Charlotte's body language shifted in an instant, shoulders rising. Sketchbook clutched tighter, one small step backward. The audio was faint, but the microphone caught fragments. "Don't think for one moment." Camilla's voice. Low and flat, "Your mother's place." Those 3 words were clearest of all. When the time comes, things will look very different for all of you. Charlotte said nothing. She didn't move. She looked the way children look when they don't fully understand the words, but don't understand perfectly that they are being threatened. Camilla held her gaze for a long moment. Then she straightened up, adjusted her jacket, and walked away down the corridor as if nothing had happened. Charlotte stood alone for 11 seconds. Then she turned and walked back the way she had come. She didn't go to the library. She went to her room. She closed the door. She didn't speak again until her father arrived. The next morning, William watched the footage to the end. Then he watched it again. Gerald stood very still beside him. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the monitors and the distant sound of wind moving through the castle's old bones. When the footage ended the second time, William finally straightened up. He didn't raise his voice. That was the part the staff would talk about later, how quiet he was. How the anger came off him, not like heat, but like cold. The deep, radiating cold of something that had gone far past the point of shouting. "Get me legal," he said. "And get me my private secretary." Gerald nodded and moved toward the door. Gerald Williams' voice stopped him. "Yes, sir." "No one speaks to Camilla before I do. Not a word. Not a message. Nothing." Gerald nodded again. His face was carefully neutral, the way it always was. But his hands, William noticed, were not entirely steady. He walked out. The door closed behind him, and William stood alone in the cold blue light, replaying 47 seconds in his mind. Asterisk, asterisk. Camilla was in the rose drawing room when William found her. She was seated by the window with a cup of tea, reading a newspaper. The afternoon light caught the silver in her hair. She looked entirely at ease, the look of a woman who believed she was untouchable. She heard his footsteps. She looked up. Something shifted in her expression. Not guilt, exactly. More like calculation. A rapid private assessment. She had lived inside royal politics long enough to read the air in a room before anyone spoke. And the air William brought with him now was not the air of a courtesy visit. He closed the door behind him. He did not sit down. "I've seen the footage," he said. Camilla set her teacup down slowly. She said nothing. "The East Corridor. Yesterday afternoon. You and Charlotte." A pause. Long enough to be deliberate. "I was simply speaking to the girl," Camilla said. Her voice was measured, patrician. The tone she used when she wanted to make someone feel they were overreacting. "She's 9 years old." William said, "I'm aware of her age. She hasn't spoken in 36 hours. Camilla looked toward the window. "Children are sensitive. Surely you know that by now." That was the moment. The staff member who had lingered briefly outside the door would describe it this way later. To someone they trusted, in a hushed conversation that would eventually find its way out of the castle walls. That was the moment the composure cracked. Not entirely. William was not the kind of man who threw things or slammed doors. But his voice changed. The careful, measured restraint that royals wear like armor, it slipped. Just enough. "Don't do that," he said. "Don't manage me. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a courtier. I'm her father. And what you said to her in that corridor, I heard it. Every word." Camilla turned back to face him. Her eyes were steady, but her hands, resting in her lap, tightened slightly. "You're being dramatic," she said. "I'm being a parent," William said. Silence held the room for a long moment. Outside, a bird moved through the garden. The sound of it was almost absurd, small and ordinary against everything happening inside those walls. "This is not the first time," William said. His voice had dropped lower now, quieter, more dangerous. "I've been patient. Catherine has been patient. We've made room, we've shown respect, we've kept the peace for years because we thought it mattered. Because we thought it served something larger than ourselves." He took a step forward. "But she is a child, my child. And if you ever speak to her that way again, I won't be having this conversation privately." Camilla held his gaze. She was not a woman easily shaken. Decades of public life had given her a composure that most people couldn't dent. But something behind her eyes shifted. A recalculation. A recognition that the man standing in front of her was not the same William, who had once swallowed things quietly for the sake of unity. "Are you threatening me?" she asked. "I'm telling you the truth," he said. "Which, in this family, I understand, can feel the same way." He turned and walked toward the door. "Your things will need to be moved to the Clarence House guest suite by Friday," he said, without turning back. "The East Wing is being closed for renovation." It wasn't being renovated. Everyone would know that. Camilla would know it. But the message was wrapped in the careful language of palace logistics. The way everything painful in the royal family always was. He opened the door. He walked out. And somewhere in the castle, his daughter sat on the floor of her room with her sketchbook, drawing finally. A small sign of something returning. Something that had gone very quiet now, slowly finding its way back. But the damage inside those walls had already begun to spread. And the people who asterisk by Thursday morning. Windsor felt different. The staff could sense it, the way animals sense a change in weather before it arrives. Conversations stopped sooner when someone walked into a room. Eyes moved carefully. The usual rhythms of the household, the schedules, the meal timings. The quiet choreography of palace life had a new tension running beneath them, like a wire pulled almost to its limit. Camilla had not appeared at breakfast. She had sent word through her private secretary that she was resting. No further details. No timeline. The kind of message that, in palace language, communicated quite a lot without saying anything at all. King Charles had been reached by phone. William had spoken to his father the previous evening, a conversation that lasted nearly an hour. None of the aides present in the adjacent room could hear what was said. But when William emerged, his face was the careful, composed version of itself. The face he wore when something had been decided and he was done discussing it. What Charles said or didn't say in that hour would shape everything that followed. Catherine, meanwhile, stayed close to the children. She had arranged a small art project for Charlotte, something low pressure, something with paint and paper and no expectations. She sat beside her daughter at the table, working alongside her, not asking questions, being present the way mothers know how to be when words are not the point. Charlotte was better, not completely, but better. She had told Catherine a little more that morning, not the words, not the specifics, but the feeling of it. She said Camilla had looked at her like she was in the way. She said it felt like being told something without being told it out loud. Catherine had listened without expression. She had squeezed Charlotte's hand and told her she had done nothing wrong, that she was loved, that she was safe. But inside, something had hardened in Catherine. Quietly, the way it does in mothers when their instinct to protect has been triggered and refuses to stand down. The legal team had already begun a quiet review of the CCTV footage. Not for public use, nothing involving the children would ever be made public. But documentation was important. That was the word William had used with his private secretary, documentation. As if what had happened were a policy issue, an administrative matter, something that could be filed and referenced and controlled. It was the only way he knew how to hold it together. But the fracture in the family was not just about one corridor and one Tuesday afternoon. It had been building for longer than anyone wanted to admit. Small slights, whispered comments, the strategic undermining that lives inside polite language and plausible deniability. Things that couldn't be proven, only felt. Until 47 seconds of CCTV footage made them real. Camilla's allies inside the palace were already moving. Quietly, carefully briefing people, shaping the narrative before any narrative could take shape on its own. This was how the palace had always worked. Information was a resource, and the people who controlled it controlled everything. One of Camilla's senior aides approached Gerald on Thursday afternoon, casually, in the way that wasn't casual at all. The CCTV system in the East Wing has been due for an upgrade, the aide said, smiling. I'd have been wanting to do a full archive review. Might be a good time. Gerald looked at the aide for a long moment. The archive is already backed up, he said, in 3 separate locations. Per protocol, the aide's smile didn't change. But the conversation ended. Gerald walked directly to William's office and told him every word. William sat at his desk. He steepled his fingers together and looked at the surface of the desk for a long moment. How many people know about the footage? He asked. Inside the security team. For outside of that, you, myself, your legal secretary, and the Princess of Wales. Keep it that way. Yes. Sir. Gerald turned to leave. One more thing, William said. Gerald paused. Tell IT the archive system is performing perfectly and requires no maintenance at this time. Gerald allowed himself the smallest nod. Of course, sir. The door closed, and inside the palace, the quiet war continued. King Charles arrived at Windsor on Friday afternoon. He came quietly, no public announcement, no press motorcade. Just 2 cars through the private entrance, the way he traveled when he didn't want the world to know he was moving. His face, when he stepped out of the car, was tired in a way that went deeper than age. It was the tiredness of a man who had spent his entire life standing at the intersection of family and duty, and was being asked to stand there once more. William met him at the door. They embraced briefly, the formal, careful embrace of royal men, backpats and brevity. Then they walked inside together without a word to anyone. They met in the private study. The room with the dark shelves and the 2 leather chairs that had been there since before William was born. No aides, no secretaries. No one with a notepad or a recording device or an agenda to protect. Just a father and a son. Charles had already seen the footage. Gerald had sent it to the King's private secretary 2 days ago, per William's instruction. Charles had watched it alone in his own study at Sandringham. His reaction, if he had one, had been entirely private. Now he sat across from his son, and his eyes were careful. She's better, Charles asked first. He meant Charlotte. Slowly, William said. She's drawing again. She smiled this morning. Charles nodded. The relief was genuine, whatever complexity existed in that room. His feeling for his granddaughter was not complicated at all. Then the silence. You know what I'm asking?" "Papa," William said. Charles looked down at his hands. Those hands photographed 10,000 times, studied by cartoonists and biographers. Hands that had signed documents and shaken the hands of presidents and clutched flowers at too many funerals. "What you're asking is not simple," Charles said. "What she did was not ambiguous." William replied, "No." Charles said quietly, "It wasn't." Another silence. The fire in the corner of the room made small, soft sounds. Outside, the Windsor sky had gone gray again. The way it always did in this season, as if the sky over England understood the weight of old things. "She is my wife," Charles said. "And Charlotte is my daughter," William said. "And one day she will stand where you are standing. And she needs to know, she needs to have felt in her bones that this family chose her. That when it mattered, we didn't choose silence." Charles looked at his son for a long moment. William held his gaze without flinching. He was not the boy who had stood at his mother's funeral, small and stunned and unreachable. He was not the young man who had learned early that grief was private. That feeling was managed, that the institution always came before the person. He was something else now. A man who had decided what mattered. "I'm not asking you to make a public statement," William said. "I'm not asking for a war. I'm asking for a boundary, a real one. Not palace language, not managed distance. A real line clearly drawn that says my children are protected. By everyone, including her." Charles was quiet for a very long time. The fire crackled. Then he said, "I'll speak to her tonight." It wasn't everything William had wanted, but it was something that hadn't existed 3 days ago. William nodded. "And the East Wing arrangement?" William asked. "A TT will stand," Charles said. "Indefinitely." William stood. He reached out and touched his father's shoulder, brief, firm. The kind of touch that meant something even between men who didn't say things easily. "Thank you," he said. He walked out. He left his father sitting by the fire, in the old leather chair, in the room that smelled of wood and old books and the particular silence of decisions already made. Charles sat for a long time after his son left. He was thinking, perhaps, of another woman, another mother, another time when silence had been chosen over truth, and the cost of it had echoed down through years and into the bones of his children. He didn't make that mistake again. That night, he went to find Camilla. No one knew exactly what was said between Charles and Camilla that Friday night. Their conversation lasted 2 hours. The staff on duty in the adjacent corridor heard nothing, not a raised voice, not a sharp word, not even the particular silence that follows them. Just the low murmur of two people who had known each other a long time, working through something that could not be unknotted easily. But what happened in the days that followed told its own story by the following Monday. Camilla's calendar had been quietly restructured. Her appearances at Windsor were reduced to formal occasions only, events with clear purpose, clear timelines, clear exits. The extended stays, the lingering presence in the East Wing. The way she had gradually expanded her footprint in the castle over the preceding months, all of it pulled back, neatly, without announcement. The way the palace always moved through logistics, never language. Her senior aide, the one who had approached Gerald about the CCTV archive, was reassigned within the week. A different role, a different building, phrased as a promotion. No one was supposed to notice. Most people didn't. Inside the family, things were not suddenly healed. These things never are. The fault lines that had been building for years, the old tensions between the new generation and the old guard, between William's way of doing things and the palace's instinct for preservation, those didn't close overnight. They rarely do. But something had shifted. Something structural and real. Charlotte noticed it in the way children notice things without understanding all of it. She noticed that Camilla was no longer at the breakfast table when they stayed at Windsor. She noticed that her father seemed less tightly wound when they were there. She noticed that her mother laughed more easily in those walls than she had in a while. She didn't know all the reasons. She didn't need to. She just knew that the fear she had carried home in her chest that Tuesday afternoon, the cold weight of those words in that corridor slowly, over the following weeks, began to lift. Not all at once, but piece by piece. The way weight does when the people around you decide it shouldn't be there. William never spoke publicly about any of it. Not one word. He didn't write a statement or give an interview or allow a sympathetic leak to find its way into a newspaper. This was his close circle understood, a deliberate choice. Not silence born of weakness or deference, the old kind of silence. The kind that protected institutions at the expense of people. This was something different. This was the silence of a man who had fought the battle he needed to fight, in the rooms where it needed to happen, and who understood that his daughter's dignity was not a news story. Some things are won quietly. Catherine took Charlotte to the coast the following weekend, just the two of them and a small security detail. They walked on the beach for 2 hours in the cold air. Charlotte collected stones the way she always did, choosing them for shape and color, carrying them in her pockets until they were heavy. At one point she found a flat gray stone with a white line running perfectly through the middle. That one looks like it survived. Something, Catherine said. Charlotte turned it over in her hand. She looked at it for a moment. I think it's the best one, she said. She put it in her pocket. She kept walking. The sea moved behind them, cold and steady and indifferent to palaces and protocols and the careful wars fought inside ancient walls. Charlotte walked beside her mother on that gray beach, her pockets full of stones, her face turned into the wind. And if you had seen her then, you would not have seen a princess. You would have seen a girl. Just a girl present and breathing and still here, which, in the end, was everything.